Well, this is the first time that I've been talking about a 3D printer on my channel. Up to now I've been using my laser quite a bit, I've been using my CNC, and the whole object behind of what I do is my art. I like to make boxes. So I thought that the 3D printer would help me market a different type of box, especially with the hearts and any other patterns that I put in there. If I could make these three-dimensional, I think that would really make a big pop as far as the quality of the boxes that I make. So that's why I bought the 3D printer. So I took approximately a month and I looked at almost every single review that was out there on the internet as far as printers were, 3D printers were concerned. And I narrowed my choice down to maybe half a dozen, and during the course of that month I whittled it down to 3, then maybe to 4, then back up to, then down to 3 again, and I finally made my decision based on my shop. A lot of the open frame 3D printers, well, you've got some delamination issues because of air currents going around the shop. My shop has a heater on there that is blowing air every once in a while in this cold environment. I have 2 garage doors in my shop and they're not exactly airtight, so there is some leakage of air. So right away I figured out any open frame 3D printer is not going to work for me. So the next thing I wanted to do was, I didn't want to really get involved in building anything, and even though I'm quite capable of building stuff, and I just didn't want to build a tool. I'd rather have the tool already done. I didn't want a cheap unit. I wanted something that I would plug right out of the box and produce stuff right away. I didn't want to have to play games with cheap things and have to worry about the cheap mechanics or whatever. So I chose between 2 3D printers that were pretty close, and then finally I settled on the Adventurer 4 printer from FlashForge. And I liked it because it had a big enough build platform to do what I want to do, which is bigger gears, yet it's small enough that it's not going to take up an inordinate amount of space in my shop. It also comes with 2 heating elements, one for 240 degrees Celsius and another one for 265 degrees Celsius. Now I'm not sure that that's the reason I bought it, but I also bought an additional 0.3 millimeter 240 degrees Celsius head as well, because I thought I'd be doing some finer work and that would be required. Well, here we are approximately a week later, and my idea of what I want to do with a 3D printer has not necessarily been made. Now, one of the things I do a lot of is cameras. So what I was going to do is print a lot of stuff up to do with my cameras. And to some degree I was pretty successful in that. This is a mount for a Gecko tripod that I have, and I designed this one totally in Fusion 360, and it worked. It was fine. The print came out okay. I won't say that it's great. I was using PLA that I purchased from Sunlu, and well, I can't complain. It is exactly what I designed. Then another print that I made, which was one of my first prints, was a little sensor body. I used these on my CNC, and what I wanted to do was make some type of a traverse mechanism out of the PLA so that I can align my axes on my gantry. So this turned out great, and I'm very happy with it. Another thing I did is I wanted to make a back cover for my lenses. I will say that this was not a total success. It did print well, and everything is not bad, but as far as the quality of the print, there's a lot of stringing going on in here, which I'll show you later. And then another thing I tried to do was print a case for my ESP8266s. I use those a lot in lights and just playing around here. They're really a nice, do I got one? Yeah, I do. They're really a nice little platform for programming. They have a Wi-Fi, USB, enough ports to do whatever I want to. So I use those a lot in what I'm doing. So I found some ESP8266s online as far as cases are concerned, and this was a case that has a ridge and it snaps together. And when I printed it, it was great. It actually does do everything I want. The only thing that I had an issue with, well, I have two issues, but the main one is I broke out one of the knobs that holds down the ESP8266, and I think that's because this PLA is just a little bit too fragile for it. You apply any little pressure when I do a cleanup and bang, it popped off. And the other thing that I learned is watch your measurements. So this particular case that I got off of one Thingiverse or something like that was for an ESP8266. But not the ESP8266s that I have, So it's a nice case, and that's all I can say about it. So after that, I started printing. What I really wanted to print was some gears, and the gears came out, reasonably well. I'm not going to complain about those. So I'm pretty happy overall with that. Now, the printer itself. Yeah, I don't think we had too much of a problem. I plugged it in. I did one of their 9-point calibrations that we did, and I know a lot of people complain about that, but it's a one-time thing. It's so easy that okay, yeah, it would be better if it was all electronic and it had a sensor in there and all that. It would be super great if it had that, but it doesn't. But that's okay. I've only done it one time, and I've been printing. I've had no lamination, no delamination issues. Everything seems to look pretty good, so I'm okay with that part of it. And I understand that if I change the head, from the 240 degrees Celsius to the 265, I have to do another calibration. Okay, well, when that time comes, then I'll do it, but I have no need to do the 265 head yet. So I'm okay with that. Now, I've had failures, and I don't think the failures were entirely due to the printer. Most of everything I've done, I'm happy with. But I've had, some things. This was supposed to be a big bearing, a race that's going to have BBs in here, and it's going to work. But you can see that's not supposed to be separated. So what happened here is after I got it off when I was taking it off of the raft that it produced, it broke at exactly the right point where everything just stops and goes up a layer. So all of these things have that. There's a little line on all of my parts, and I have a hard time finding it on some of them, but here it is. So when we put down the plastic, after the plastic is done on the layer, it lifts up one and does the plastic again. Well, this will always be the weak point on any mechanism that you build, is that point where you're coming up and doing it around. I don't know why they can't just simply move down the chain further and have a different starting point every time, and that would eliminate this problem. I could still use this by either gluing it together with super glue or just not worrying about it at all because it's going to be encased by another thing around it. But this printed, and I will say I wasn't too unhappy. There's a stringing, and I'm not quite sure what that stringing is all about, whether it's from the raft or from the layer that just didn't get laid down right. I suspect it's leftovers from the raft. Overall, I really like it. I think the printer will do what I want to do. It's just, it takes me a little bit of time to learn it. If you're an absolute novice at electronics, or if you're an absolute novice at understanding the CAD systems that are involved, then I would back off of this one for a while and learn the CAD and learn what you, and really have a good expectation of what you really want this thing to do. Now, I bought some polycarbonate. Was it carbon fiber? Well, I think it was carbon fiber. I bought some carbon fiber. I haven't tried that yet, and I have only really used the PLA. So I think for some of the gears that I want to do, carbon fiber would be better, or just do nylon. So maybe in the future I'm going to buy another roll of that and do it. Now, my workflow is put it into Fusion 360, measure it there, make sure all the dimensions are correctly, then export it as a 3D, as a print object, and then that goes directly into what was it, FlashPrint 5. And FlashPrint 5 is what takes it from a mesh to where you're going to slice it. Now once it's sliced, it tells you how many hours and blah 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 it's going to take to do this thing, and then you have the option to transfer it over to the printer directly. I use Wi-Fi. I have never had a problem with it. The Wi-Fi works great on my thing, but as far as my Wi-Fi is concerned, it's like 20 feet away from this anyways. So it's strong. The other reason I bought this particular unit is it has, you know, you can put the Cat 5 right directly into it too, and I like that. The negative parts that I found on the mechanical situation is the USB port. You can save, it has a camera, which I would say is probably bad. It's probably the worst thing about this Adventurer 4 is the camera. It really is absolutely, I won't say totally useless, but yeah, useless. But you can take stop motion pictures with it during the process. And then technically you're supposed to be able to push that onto a flash drive. I've got 9 flash drives. Not one flash drive was capable of storing any of those images off of the Adventurer 4. So that's something I still got to deal with, and really is such a low priority for me I didn't even bother. So where else are we going to go? It's pretty quiet, I will say that, you know, but I'm in a shop, so noise is a fact of life in the shop. But it is fairly quiet. It's running right now, and I don't know if this microphone will pick it up or not. I like the enclosed filament door, so that the filaments, you know, not just hanging out in space. It's enclosed. I like everything enclosed. They still say that sometimes you're going to get leakage through that plexiglass door. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know a lot about the PLAs, so I'm not sure if the PLA I'm using is a good PLA or not. It's Sunlu, so I don't think it's, you know, it's not the cheapest PLA out there. But with the stringing that I'm getting, you know, some people say reduce the temperature down a little bit, and I might try that, you know, later. So, you know, I've been rambling on this particular one, but, you know, I think overall it's going to do what I want to do. It just takes a lot of time to understand all of the components that you need to get a successful print. All of the things that will fail. You have to know and have a good feeling for, is this horizontal piece properly supported? Will it work? So I found out on some of my camera caps that that's not the case. It will not work too well with that. And the failure modes there are, let's say, I don't know what exactly the failure modes are, but these little inserts here are horizontal to the plane and they stick out, and that's a no-no. So maybe I'm getting a little bit of a problem with the plastic not welding correctly into the from layer to layer, and it's just falling down. I don't know. But I was a little bit disappointed with that. And you can see that the first layer is over here, and I'll show you that on a different picture, or I'll blow it up and then insert it in here. When you're going horizontal, you do have a problem with this area here. It's just not very good. But I think that's 3D printing. So I got a lot to do. I like to try a lot more filaments out. I think the printer is good for somebody who understands drafting and the problems. I think it's a great printer for that. It's not a $5,000 printer. It's, you know, $800. I think it's a good deal for $800. If you're going to use it a lot and you want an enclosed printer to prevent drafts and everything, I think this is one. Now, I haven't had any problems with the plugging or anything like that yet, and knock on wood, I hope I will not ever have that. One disappointment on this printer though is printing TPU, the flexible fiber. Because of the way that it's being pushed up through and everything, they say that you can't use TPU. So I didn't know that until after I got it here. That was one research checkbox that I forgot to check on this one. But I still would have bought the printer. And flexible stuff isn't you know, high priority for what I do. So I rambled long enough on this one, so we'll just let it go. And thank you for watching.